you ever think about the boundaries of the human mind? How far you can push it before something pushes back? I was the guide that night. Always the guide, never the subject. I thought I knew how to control it, how to keep the game safe. But the truth? The truth is that you're never in control. Not really. We were just a group of teenagers, chasing a thrill we didn't understand. Red door, yellow door. It's a game you've probably heard of. An innocent-sounding name for something anything but innocent. The setup was simple. A dark room, 4 of us, and the instructions I thought I had memorized. But nothing prepares you for what lies beyond those doors. We found an empty practice room at school, the perfect spot. No interruptions, no distractions, just us and whatever waited on the other side. I played my role, kneeling beside my friend Erin, who had volunteered to be the subject. Her head rested on another friend's lap, arms up, palms out. The chant began, soft at first, growing louder. Red door, yellow door, any other color door. Over and over, a hypnotic rhythm that pulled her deeper and deeper. I watched as her arms trembled, her fingers twitching ever so slightly. Then, they started to lower, slowly, methodically. By the time her hands hit the floor, the room was silent except for the sound of her breathing, shallow and uneven. I leaned in close. "What do you see?" I asked, my voice steady. For a moment, there was nothing, just silence. And then she spoke. "I see a hallway. It's dark, but there are doors. So many doors." That was the moment the game truly began. I guided her carefully, asking questions to keep her grounded. "What color is the first door?" I asked. "Black," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Do you want to go in?" "No," she replied quickly. Too quickly. Her breathing hitched, and I could feel the tension radiating off her. I told her to keep moving, to find another door. The next one was red. "It's warm," she said, "but it feels wrong." I told her to keep going, my stomach tightening with every word. I'd heard the stories, about the man in the dark suit, the ticking clocks, the stairs leading down. You don't mess with those things. You don't even get close. Then she stopped. "There's someone here," she said, her voice trembling. "Who?" I asked, my heart pounding. "A woman," she replied. "She's old, Victorian dress. She's smiling at me." My blood ran cold. Every instinct screamed at me to end the game, to pull her out immediately. But before I could act, Erin's body tensed. Her breathing turned shallow, almost choking. "She's moving closer," Erin gasped. "She's reaching for me." I called her name, trying to snap her out of it. "Erin, Erin, wake up." But she didn't respond. Her body started shaking, her hands clawing at the air. And then, she screamed. A blood-curdling, gut-wrenching scream that echoed off the walls. I grabbed her shoulders, shaking her, shouting her name. But she was trapped, lost somewhere I couldn't follow. It took all of us to pull her out. Someone threw cold water on her face, and finally, her eyes flew open. But she wasn't really there. She looked through us, her gaze empty, her face pale as death. She couldn't speak for hours. When she finally did, all she could say was, "She followed me. She's still here." We left the room that night, but something stayed behind, or maybe something came with us. Erin wasn't the same after that. None of us were. The scratches on her back, the whispers in the dark, the feeling of being watched. They never went away. So, if you're thinking about playing red door, yellow door, let me give you one piece of advice. Don't. Some doors aren't meant to be opened, and some things, once seen, can never be unseen. What I'm about to share with you isn't just a story. It's an experience. It's one that still haunts me to this day, and I can't stress this enough. Do not try this. The ritual is called The Three Kings, and it's said to offer a glimpse into something called the shadow side. It's not quite another world, but something in between. A reflection of reality that strips away the illusions we comfort ourselves with. They say it's not for the faint of heart, but I didn't believe any of that when I started. I thought it was just a game. But what I saw, what I heard, let me take you back to that night. The ritual requires precise preparation. I spent hours gathering the materials: 3 chairs, 2 large mirrors, a bucket of water, a mug, a fan, an unlit candle, and my phone. Most importantly, you need an item that holds deep emotional significance. For me, it was my grandfather's pocket watch, a relic from my childhood that always gave me comfort. You also need someone you trust, someone who can follow instructions no matter what happens. My girlfriend volunteered, but I wish I had warned her better about what she was agreeing to. I decided to use the basement at my dad's house. It was big, dark, and quiet, the perfect setting. The room had no windows, just concrete walls that seemed to absorb sound. It already felt oppressive just being down there. At exactly 11 p.m., I started setting everything up. The first chair, the throne, was placed in the center of the room facing north. On either side, at arm's length, I set the 2 other chairs. These are called the Queen and the Fool. I positioned them so that their backs were at a perfect 90-degree angle to my throne. On each chair, I placed one of the large mirrors, angled so I could just barely see my reflection in my peripheral vision when I sat down. The fan went behind the throne, blowing steadily at medium power. It's there as a fail-safe, in case something happens. The candle and a lighter sat on the floor in front of the throne, along with the bucket of water in the mug, just out of reach. Everything had to be perfect. They say even the slightest deviation can lead to problems. I left the basement door wide open as instructed and went upstairs to try to sleep. My phone was charging next to me, and my alarm was set for 3:30 a.m. I held onto my grandfather's watch as I drifted into a restless sleep. When the alarm jolted me awake, my heart was already racing. I grabbed the candle, the lighter, and my phone, making my way back to the basement. The house was eerily silent, and each creak of the floorboards felt like a warning. By the time I reached the basement door, I could feel it. A presence. It was like the air itself had weight, pressing down on my shoulders. My girlfriend was sitting by the door, ready to intervene if anything went wrong. I told her to stay put and stepped inside. I lit the candle and carefully walked to the throne, keeping my eyes on the flame. The darkness around me felt alive, shifting and stretching as the candle flickered. I could feel the mirrors on either side of me, but I didn't dare look at them. When I sat down, everything changed. The room felt endless. The walls and ceiling disappeared into a void of blackness. The only sound was the low hum of the fan behind me, but even that seemed distant. I stared straight ahead, into the dark, gripping the candle like it was my lifeline. At first, nothing happened. Just silence and the oppressive feeling of being watched. But then, in the corners of my eyes, I saw it. Movement in the mirrors. It wasn't my reflection. The figures moved independently, shifting and writhing in the glass. My heart was pounding, but I forced myself to stay still. I couldn't look at them directly. That was one of the rules. And then I heard it. Faint murmuring, like distant voices. It was coming from the mirrors. "Who's there?" I asked, my voice trembling. The murmuring stopped. From the left, a voice answered, cold and mocking. "Someone who knows." From the right, another voice replied, softer but no less unsettling. "Yourself." I froze. The voices didn't sound human. They sounded wrong, like they were speaking through static. The one on the left began to taunt me, whispering things I had buried deep. It brought up memories I hadn't thought about in years, things I regretted, things I was ashamed of. "You let him die. It's your fault. It hissed. My stomach dropped. It was talking about my best friend, who had taken his own life years ago. I tried to argue, but the voice just laughed. You never cared about anyone but yourself, it said. On the right, the second voice tried to soothe me, but it was no better. It's okay, it said. Come closer. We can show you the truth. I gripped the candle tighter, my hands shaking. The air around me grew colder, and I could feel something moving just behind me. And then the fan stopped. The sudden silence was deafening. The air became thick and stifling, and I realized I was holding my breath. Don't turn around, the voice on the left warned, almost gleeful. But I couldn't help it. My instincts took over, and I turned. The candle went out. The room plunged into darkness, and I felt someone, right behind me. I scrambled to relight the candle, my hands fumbling with the lighter, but it wouldn't ignite. My chest tightened as the voices grew louder, overlapping and echoing in the pitch black. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder. I screamed and bolted for the light switch, flipping it on. The room flooded with light, and everything looked normal again. The chairs, the mirrors, the fan. It was all just as I'd left it, but I wasn't alone. When I turned back to the mirrors, my reflection stared at me and smiled. I haven't been back to the basement since. The memories still haunt me, and sometimes, late at night, I swear I can hear the voices again. So if you're thinking about trying this, don't. The shadow side isn't a game. It's real. And once you open the door, you can never truly close it. You ever have one of those moments where the past comes back to haunt you? A year ago, my family and I took a vacation abroad. We stayed in this fancy hotel, tall, elegant, with marble floors and chandeliers that sparkled like something out of a movie. It felt safe. It felt untouchable. We got our room key, unpacked, and settled into our cozy spot on the 5th floor. At night, I had a little ritual. After dinner, I'd head to the lobby. I'd read, watch a movie with my headphones, or chat with the receptionist, Tom. He was friendly, laid back. It was my way of winding down. One night, like any other, I brought my purse with me, my phone, my wallet, the usual stuff. I stayed longer than I realized, and my mom texted, asking when I'd come back. It was almost 11 p.m., so I grabbed my things, took the elevator up, and stayed up in the room for a bit. But half an hour later, it hit me. I'd left my purse in the lobby. My dad and I tried calling the front desk, but no one picked up. For 10 agonizing minutes, we kept trying. Nothing. Finally, I decided to head back down. I stepped into the elevator. That's when I saw her. She looked about my age, 16, maybe 17. She was shy-looking, with her head down, and she didn't say a word. I tried to make casual conversation. So, what floor are you on? Nothing, not even a glance. She just stared at the wall, then pressed the button for the 1st floor. Oh, cool sweater, I said, trying to lighten the mood. But still, nothing. I thought maybe she was upset, or maybe she couldn't hear me. That's when it dawned on me. She could be deaf or nonverbal, or maybe she had special needs. I felt bad for even talking. Suddenly, the elevator did something odd. Instead of going down, it shot up to the 10th floor. I remember saying, "That's weird," but she didn't react. She just kept looking down, her body stiff, her fingers twitching slightly. When the doors opened, the hallway was empty, silent, still. She stepped out without hesitation. "Hey, aren't you going to the 1st floor?" I called after her. But she didn't answer. She didn't even turn around. She bolted down the hall, disappearing into the shadows. I shrugged it off, hit the ground floor button, and rode down to the lobby. Tom was at the desk when I got there. Hey, I left my bag earlier. Did anyone turn it in? He nodded, disappeared for a second, then came back with my purse. Here you go, he said. He told me that I could have called down to the lobby and he would have gladly taken it up to my room. I tried, I told him, but the line seemed to be busy for a long time. He seemed confused. He said he hadn't had a call for hours. As I turned to leave, I stopped. Something was nagging at me. Hey Tom, are there any guests here who might be deaf or have special needs? Tom gave me a confused look. Not that I know of, and even if there were, I couldn't tell you. Why? I told him about the girl in the elevator, how she wouldn't respond, how she ran off. Tom frowned. No idea. But that's unsettling. The next morning, just as we were heading out to explore, Tom waved me over to the desk. His face was pale, his voice low. A girl went missing last night, he said. The girl from the elevator. My blood turned to ice. She was seen on the security cameras, he continued, pressing random buttons in the elevator. Then she gets out on the 10th floor. And then, she's gone. He showed me the footage. There she was, looking nervous, jittery, pressing buttons at random. Then I entered the elevator. Then she left on the 10th floor. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something about it felt wrong. I grabbed my phone and started Googling, trying to make sense of it. That's when I found it. The elevator game. The rules were clear. When you reach the 5th floor, a young woman may enter the elevator. Do not look at her. Do not speak to her. She is not what she seems. I felt sick. My skin prickled. My chest tightened. Was I part of her game? Had I broken some unspoken rule by talking to her? To this day, I don't know what really happened. All I know is that the girl never came back. She's still missing. And every night, I wonder, did I do something? Did I become part of something I didn't understand? Sometimes when I close my eyes, I hear the soft ding of an elevator. I see her silhouette in the corner of my mind, and I wonder, am I next?